Hi everybody, JT Hume here from the CC and JT Amateur Hour, the worldwide podcast that helps writers write. In this video series, what I'm doing is I'm reading my first book, Duties Faithfully Executed, right here on, flipping back and forth, over here on, there we go, over here on Amazon.com. You know, it's $1.99 and it's free on Kindle Unlimited, and it's been out there since 2013. And so what I'm doing is I'm reading the book here, to get myself accustomed to working on video, but also to again, helping writers write. I'm going to talk about my logic and thought processes behind writing this book as I go through it. This book was, as I said, was published in 2013, so it's been a while. So we're discovering it together, basically. I'm rediscovering it because it's been so long since I've gone through this. So I'll read what this next part, then talk about what I would have done or should have done better, or maybe something I would have changed, or maybe I'll just keep it the way it is. Now, each part of this book has interludes into it, and I'm going to go into one of those interludes right now. And this interlude is called The Marketing Director. And this is the marketing director for Bruce, who is the main character for this series. This is the marketing director for Bruce's campaign. The sad irony of The Message is less than 5% of the electorate will actually read it. I'm excluding the special interest groups, lobbyists, media, and our esteemed colleagues in the opposition, who will take a microscope through every document produced by a campaign so they control up a page of facts engineered to trip the campaigner during an interview or QA setting. It's not pretty when that happens, but we all gotta do it to each other. Gotta love democracy. The electorate, on the other hand, rarely dwells deeply into the message. The many reasons all boils down to why people vote the way they do. Some will vote the way their family and their friends vote. Others choose candidates who look good on television. Most often, they'll choose who to vote for because they hate the opposition's message, even though they probably haven't read any of it either. If you think I'm implying the American electorate is shallow and vapid when it comes to their most important constitutional duty, you're absolutely correct. In any case, a modern campaign will have a top-flight marketing staff that's fluent in print, internet, radio, and televised media platforms. Those professionals will work smoothly with the party's national and local media staff to produce an advertising package with lots of pretty pictures and American flags. The package will have a scientific level of ambiguity to make the candidate appear to stand by the issues the voter actually care for without actually forcing the candidate to vote for those issues. Additionally, many campaigns have a dozen consultants in power suits to advise and craft the candidate's public persona as needed. In many instances, the communications and marketing director are the same person, and he or she lords over a staff fluent in 21st century communications. In an ideal situation, this all gels together into a series of messages delivered in 15-second spots or 140 characters that promise the world without committing the candidate to a single course of action. However, as a small state governor running on a shoestring campaign with minimal support from the national party, I had Natalie. Her full name was Dr. Natalie Paul Edwards, PhD and MBA, tenured professor of communications at a California college you've never heard of. If I had to pick the weakest part of my staff, I'd start with me. The second person on my list would be Natalie. The first person on everyone else's list would have been Natalie. I should have fired her ass after New Hampshire, but I knew something about her most folks don't. Don knew, and he tried to help, but he was far better at the printed word. Marketing was as foreign to him as Korean kimchi is to me. Natalie was dying from cancer and took breaks from the campaign to do chemo and treatments. When I stabbed everybody in the back in Iowa, she left and never spoke to me again. She wanted me to be her last gift to mankind, and I let her down in oh so many ways. Maybe she would have been disappointed if she'd lived a couple more years, but that was not to be. You'll understand why soon. Natalie came on board during my run for governor and did great. The difference between a gubernatorial candidate and a national campaign is dramatic, though. She never made the adjustments to the big tent. The few consultants I had begged me to let her go because we were drowning in mixed messages. I would tell reporter John in Seattle about my support for open seaports, and he'd whip out one of my flyers that seemed to say American products should be promoted and protected above foreign products. That message works well in union-based Detroit, but Seattle needs foreign trade to grow. Reporter Monica in Albuquerque ambushed me with contradictory campaign materials that supported both a study on easing immigration law and better border protection. Brick walls constructed by Natalie were appearing on all sides of me. I spent too much precious time defending myself and clarifying my position, and not enough on important matters. By the time Doug took control of the marketing situation, the damage was done. Reams of trees were dead, and nothing would ever bring them back. After New Hampshire, I called Natalie up to the hotel room, my hotel suite that doubled as sleeping quarters in my office. I swear I fully intended to fire her, cancer or not. I started by outlining our campaign I started by outlining our campaign goals and where we'd failed to meet them. I objectively pointed out where I dropped the ball and where she had met our goals and where she had been the one to screw up. I told her I took her medical current situation into account, but things simply weren't working out. Did she know why I called her to my room? Maybe. A nice-looking woman who cleaned up. She smelled very good that night. Did I mean to meet her alone? Did I want us to sleep together? I honestly don't know, and I probably never will. It was campaign sex. Fast and furious and physical. As if we were afraid someone would walk in and catch us together. When we were done, we lay down on the carpet with my head on the small of her back, and I could feel the sweat from my face drop onto her skin. We talked about things would be different in campaign materials and how we would shape them better around the message. She promised to be more flexible and to let consultants take the lead into certain areas, notably the internet. Then we did it again. We did each other again. This time the sweat dropped from her onto me. As we moved together, she put my hands on her champagne glass breast and begged me not to let go, not to let her go. That was the first and last time we were together like that. For all I know, that was the last time for her, before cancer took her away from us, from me. I don't remember consciously deciding not to fire her, but that's how it turned out. Try not to judge us too harshly. We were each weak that night for our own reasons, but she needed a good friend more than she needed a one-night stand, and I was not that person. Maybe if I'd fired her, she would have spent more time in treatment and could have extended the quality of her life. But I couldn't bring myself to watch her leave. I failed her, and in doing so, failed my campaign. That would be a reoccurring theme. Next section. Your United States Air Force. To date, I'm pretty sure I'm the only presidential candidate who graduated from the Blue Zoo. George Bush the Younger wore a zipper suit for the Texas and Alabama National Guards. That I even end up at the Colorado School for Wayward Boys and Girls was a surprise. As my senior year at high school unfolded, I applied for all sorts of schools, but almost everyone needed an endorsement from a congressional representative in order to see the light of day at a service academy. Gran was a hardcore independent who viewed politicians in the same light as snake oil salesmen, so there was little chance of a serious endorsement. The closest I got was third place on my congressman's list for the Air Force Academy. I nearly accepted a basketball scholarship to a school in Indiana when Gran handed me the phone. Bruce Carson? This is Doug Peters from the Congressional Glover's office. Bruce Carson? This is Doug Peters with Congressman Glover's office. I'm calling to ask if you'd still be interested in attending the Air Force Academy in the fall. What? I was flabbergasted. He was offering a free college education at one of the best schools in the country for an exchange in 6 years in a blue suit. Doug repeated the offer slowly, and I repeated the message to Gran. She looked happy, and now that I think back, a little scared. Was she grasping the reality of me leaving? Or was she thinking of my dad and how he died in uniform? If so, she was amazingly prescient. In any case, I hurriedly accepted. Okay, son, Doug replied. There's still a lot of work for you to do, but I would expect a letter on Air Force stationery in the very near future. Really? I mentally slapped myself. I hated sounding my age. Yep, he chuckled. Congressman Glover sits on a couple national security subcommittees. Whenever the Air Force wants to buy a jet, he needs my boss to sign the check. If you want to go to Colorado Springs, you're going. But, but, I didn't know if it was good manners to voice my doubt, but Doug read my mind. You want to know what happened to the kids in front of you on the line? Yeah. Well, the congressman's first choice is going to Harvard. As for the second, I'll be diplomatic and say he fell out of the congressman's favor. Truthfully, he got busted smoking weed. I say this as a favor to you. If you're huffing or slamming beers or both, stop this very second. Yes, sir. Are you? No, sir. Good boy. Do us proud, son. With that, he hung up. Grant and I danced around the kitchen for a few minutes, and a few months later, I entered the great state of Colorado as a fourth-class cadet and proud member of the Air Force Academy Cadet Corps. I was more than ready to do my part for my family and country. I got over that warm fuzzy real fast. Maybe the fourth-classmen are called something else today, but back then my peers and I were doolies or FNGs, friendly new guys, gals, so to speak. And we were not to be trusted to eat or rest or breathe correctly without supervision. Our orders were issued to us in the form of SOCs, schedule of controls, and they guided our activities, classes, and sleep around the clock. Doolies had very little free time to get into trouble. The good news is once I survived the 6 weeks of basic cadet training, I had very few problems outside the classroom. I took to the blue school rituals like a fish to water. I marched and I ate in squared-off motions. My name tag placement on my uniform and hospital corners on my back bunk were always perfect, and I didn't even think about women, though my class proudly boasted the finest-looking ladies in uniform anywhere. But I did get into trouble inside the classroom. I simply was not prepared for the amount and quality of work that was force-fed onto us. Some of the subjects should have been familiar to me, like chemistry, computers, and physics, but we were getting assignments from the end of a fire hose. Objectively, I understood they were weeding out the weaklings, so I refused to be in that crowd. Between formations, SOCs, inspections, and classworks, I think I slept once a week as a doolie. It helped me stay away of academic probation, but just barely. I also wasn't prepared for the darkness to follow me to Colorado. It grew as the stress levels increased and the sleep decreased. The questions came back, spoken inside of me in the voice of a lost 8-year-old boy. To silence them, I started chewing my nails until they bled, a difficult habit to hide whenever we wore white gloves. I seriously began to worry about my chances surviving the 4 years at the Blue Zoo. I was also having problems adjusting to the good old boy environment throughout the school. Hopefully things have changed since I've left, but cliques ruled everything around the terrazzo in my day. There were the wing nuts, the pilots and navigators, the propeller heads, the intellect and intel and computer science, and various other groups. Your academic standing had a strong influence in your ultimate career path, but we all knew from the clique who would be flying Vipers and who would be working for the NSA or the CIA after graduation. The ones who were sons and daughters of graduation or Air Force Academy alumni wore a special layer of self-entitlement. As for me, I was clueless as what I wanted to do in a blue suit. I had the eyesight and reasonable physical skills to join a flight crew, and computer science fascinated me, but none of those things rang my bell. One day I signed up for an activity that not only sustained my short military career, but most likely saved my sanity. All cadets are required to engage in organized sport of some kind during their 4 years at the academy. I naturally picked basketball, but quickly learned I was so far out of my league, I wonder if I knew the game at all. My advisor got tired of picking me up from the gym floor and watching me puke, so he recommended I stick with the intramurals, which were a little less demanding. On a lark, he also suggested I try parachuting, skydiving. On my first jump, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Now, don't get me wrong, it was the single hardest thing I ever did at the academy. The school and the physical condition pushed me to the point where I was ready to work for McDonald's for the rest of my life. But when I dropped out of the Otter for the first time, I felt I'd found my home. The exhilaration and freedom of falling drove my doubts and demons to the furthest point of their existence. Before I landed, I finally felt like part of the Air Force, and I swore I would graduate under parachute silk. I would have paid to let me jump. I got my jump wings after the 5 mandatory jumps and immediately signed up for advanced training. My enthusiasm got someone's attention. Not long after, I was high-stepping around the tarmac between classes when a major in a beret stopped me. I saluted hard like all smart cadets did in those situations. The major returned the salute, put me at rest, and proceeded to change my life with one question. Cadet Carson, what do you know about special operations? Okay, so 2 sections there of duties faithfully executed. Getting into the Air Force, and then the marketing director. And so, again, as I said in the previous video or vlog, I wouldn't do interludes like that. I wouldn't take interludes like that. But on this interlude, it's an interesting piece of writing craft with that one, because we pretty much all have a fair idea what a writing, how should I say this? What a market, we have a fair idea what a marketing director does. They have a product and they need to sell it, and they need to get as much broadcast to an audience as they can and make it a sellable product. And so that was fairly obvious. So when I was writing that, I was figuring, how do I pique the interest of the reader? And then, so that's how Natalie ended up with cancer, and the two of them, Bruce and Natalie, had that one night stand. So I sort of crafted that in to give more emotional weight to Bruce, and show that he's, even as he's writing his autobiography, which is what this is there's a area of regret that he's feeling for his actions, and that that he thought that it was more important to succeed in the campaign with the best people that he had on hand, than, do the right thing and tell Natalie, hey, you need to go take care of yourself. And so, there's that emotional depth which I'm trying to lend to the main character there, and I hope you're kind of picking it up there. Now, for the Air Force part, you think that would be easy because if you've followed along in these vlogs, you know that I am an Air Force veteran. But this was actually a very difficult part, because the academy is different than the enlisted ranks for which I was in, and I knew very few. I don't even know if I knew any academy graduates. So what you read, or what you heard me read, was basically internet research, and I really felt that I was on a lot of thin ice there. I thought that I was extrapolating from what I saw on the internet, and I think it holds up pretty good. For example, the academy does have a parachute program. You can graduate with parachutist wings, and is it an academy? Is it a school where you have layers of entitlement? Well, I think that any school has layers of entitlement, whether they're legacy kids or nepotism kids or anything like that. So I think it was not very hard leap to say that, probably the Air Force Academy has that kind of thing too. And if I'm wrong and you are an Academy graduate, let me know, and we can talk it out. But I'm going to go ahead, and even if it isn't true, I'm going to hide behind a little bit of literary license there. So yeah. So where things are evolving, Bruce is, evolving through life, and you can see some problems that are going to be coming up ahead. And I think that the next couple chapters are going to be really kind of interesting. And I'm going to spoil it a little bit here. He goes overseas to a war zone. So more to read and more to experience. And so I want you to hang in there with me. As always, if you have any feedback, all the links are down here. The comment space is down there. So feel free to jump on in and let me know what you think. There is the videos page, which I'm going to be posting this to, and the links are down there too. And if you want to buy this book and read ahead, please do so. Please read my books. But if you want to do that, then that link is down there too. Okay? Anyway, anything else that I can think of? Not at this time. I do appreciate you hanging in there, and I hope that this is, if you are a writer, I hope that I'm giving you some light, or at least I'm validating some of the things that you're doing. Y'all take care of yourselves, and we'll talk later. Thank you.